Some rivers are more than just flowing water, they are history's greatest storytellers. They have shaped civilizations, witnessed empires rise and fall, and carry the secrets of time itself. Today, we explore the 5 longest rivers in the world, each with a story that defines the land it touches. The Nile, the river of pharaohs. The longest river in the world, 6,650 kilometers, stretching through 11 countries in Africa. The Nile's role in ancient Egypt, seen as the gift of the gods. A river that dictated life and death, providing fertile lands, but also unpredictable floods. Pharaohs struggled to control the Nile's power. The construction of the Aswan High Dam, taming the floods but creating new ecological challenges. The Nile today, pollution, climate change, and disputes between nations over water rights. Despite modern challenges, the Nile remains the lifeline of Africa. The impact of conservation and modern irrigation techniques. The Nile does not rush. It moves with the patience of a god, carving through the heart of Africa with an ageless certainty. For over 6,650 kilometers, its waters stretch across deserts and jungles, feeding lands that would otherwise wither beneath an unrelenting sun. The ancient Egyptians did not merely live by the Nile, they owed their existence to it. It was their cradle, their provider, their storyteller. Long before the first stone of the pyramids was laid, the Nile dictated the rhythm of life. Every year, its floods arrived like clockwork, replenishing the soil with rich silt, ensuring harvests that built empires. The river whispered secrets of the gods, carried the voices of merchants and travelers, and bore the silent passage of kings on their final journey to eternity. To the Egyptians, it was more than water. It was a deity, both merciful and wrathful, shaping the fate of all who knelt at its shores. But no force remains untamed forever. As Egypt's power grew, so did its hunger to control the Nile's gifts. Pharaohs commanded engineers to build canals, to bend the river's will. The people rejoiced at their ingenuity, until the floods refused to come. What was once divine order became a struggle against nature itself. Famine spread like fire, toppling dynasties and birthing whispers of angry gods. The Nile, once a giver of life, had become a force of reckoning. Centuries passed, and civilization evolved. The Nile's waters were no longer ruled by kings, but by machines. The Aswan High Dam, a modern marvel, stood as mankind's ultimate triumph, a barrier against the river's unpredictability. No more disastrous floods, no more years of scarcity. Egypt had finally tamed its ancient god. Or so it believed. With the dam came unforeseen consequences. The fertile silt, once freely given, now settled behind concrete walls. The land grew weary, dependent on artificial fertilizers to replace what nature once provided. The delta, once the beating heart of Egypt, began to wither as rising sea levels threatened its shores. Fishermen who had relied on the Nile for generations found its bounty diminishing, its pulse weakening. The very river that had birthed an empire now stood at a crossroads, uncertain of its future. Yet, the Nile endures. It has outlived pharaohs and conquerors, stood witness to revolutions and wars. Even as pollution clouds its waters and nations quarrel over its resources, it continues its silent journey toward the Mediterranean, indifferent to human ambition. Perhaps that is the Nile's greatest lesson. It does not belong to any one people, nor can it be truly controlled. It is ancient, eternal, a force beyond the reach of kings or nations. And as the sun sets over its glistening waters, it carries on, whispering its stories to those who will listen. The Nile has witnessed the birth of civilizations, and though it now faces a new battle, its waters will continue to tell the stories of time. The Amazon, the river of secrets. The second longest river, 6,575 kilometers, but the largest by volume, a giant in the heart of South America. A river so vast it creates its own weather system. Home to millions of species, some undiscovered, hidden in the depths of the rainforest. The ongoing destruction of the Amazon rainforest, deforestation, illegal logging, and pollution. Stories of ancient tribes that believe the river has a spirit that protects or punishes those who exploit it. A scientist's discovery of a new species, only to witness its habitat vanish due to industrial expansion. The Amazon fights back, unpredictable floods reclaiming lost land. Efforts by conservationists and indigenous communities to preserve the rainforest. The Amazon does not whisper. It roars. It surges through the heart of South America, a serpent of water stretching 6,575 kilometers, twisting through the densest rainforest on Earth. This is not a river, it is a kingdom, a force of nature so vast it creates its own weather, bending the sky to its will. To those who live along its banks, the Amazon is both a guardian and a predator, unforgiving, yet essential for survival. For centuries, it has remained an enigma. Early explorers spoke of golden cities hidden in its depths, of waters that swallowed entire fleets without a trace. Even today, the Amazon guards secrets, creatures unseen by science, tribes untouched by modern hands, ancient trees that have stood watch for 1,000 years. But for all its mystery, the river faces a threat unlike any before. Not from jaguars that prowl its shores, nor from the storms that roll in like tempests of war. Its enemy is something far more relentless: the hunger of men. It begins in whispers. The steady hum of saws, the crack of falling trees. What starts as a clearing becomes a scar, one that does not heal. The rainforest shrinks, swallowed by roads, farms, and factories. The river, once surrounded by an unbroken emerald canopy, now flows past empty land, its banks retreating. The Amazon, the lungs of the earth, is gasping. With each felled tree, the river's rhythm falters. Its currents turn sluggish, its waters clouded by silt and pollution. Fish, once abundant, vanish. Indigenous tribes, who have lived in harmony with the Amazon for generations, are pushed deeper into the unknown, their way of life disappearing like mist in the morning sun. The forest, which once seemed infinite, now feels fragile. But the Amazon is not a river that surrenders. It fights back. Its floods arrive unannounced, swallowing illegal settlements in a single night. Its waters rise with defiance, reclaiming what was stolen. Scientists, once drawn to the Amazon to discover, now come to protect. Conservationists and local warriors stand between the machines and the jungle, refusing to let greed carve away what cannot be replaced. Yet, the battle is far from over. The Amazon's fate is not written in stone, it is written in choices. If the forests fall, the river will change. Its heartbeat will slow. Its stories will fade. And the world, whether it realizes it or not, will feel the loss. But for now, the Amazon still flows, wild and untamed, carrying secrets that remain just beyond reach. Its waters surge forward, as if daring the world to decide, will we be its saviors, or its final undoing? The Amazon is not just a river, it's a living, breathing force, a guardian of Earth's deepest secrets. The Yangtze, the dragon's veins. The longest river in Asia, 6,300 kilometers, often called the Mother River of China. A historical force, witnessing the rise and fall of dynasties, wars, and revolutions. The river's dual identity, a source of prosperity but also a destroyer through massive floods. The Three Gorges Dam, the world's largest hydroelectric project, taming the river but displacing millions of people. Environmental costs, loss of ecosystems, landslides, and disappearing species. Fishermen who once relied on the Yangtze now struggle to survive. The delicate balance between progress and preservation. Efforts to restore species, clean pollution, and find harmony with the river once again. The Yangtze is not merely a river, it is a spine, a pulse, the lifeblood of China. For 6,300 kilometers, it carves a path from the icy peaks of Tibet to the East China Sea, weaving through mountains, cities, and ancient lands. It has seen emperors rise and fall, wars rage and fade, dynasties flourish and crumble. The river does not remember names, but it carries their echoes, whispering them to the waves. For centuries, the Yangtze was a force of balance, both a bringer of prosperity and a harbinger of destruction. It nourished rice fields, filled fishing nets, and connected distant provinces like the veins of a great dragon. But it also carried rage. Its floods swallowed entire villages, washing away generations in a single night. The people feared it, worshipped it, but above all, they learned to live by its rhythm. Until they decided to change it. The Three Gorges Dam, the largest hydroelectric project ever attempted by man, was built to tame the Yangtze. A wall of steel and concrete, stretching more than 2 kilometers wide, it silenced the river's untamed fury, halting its floods, bending its will to human ambition. Cities vanished beneath its rising reservoir, entire populations displaced in the name of progress. The Yangtze, once free and wild, now moved at the command of turbines. But control comes at a cost. With the dam, the river's soul began to change. The once thriving ecosystems that had depended on its natural cycle began to wither. Ancient fish, whose migrations had dictated the seasons for generations, found their paths blocked. The waters, once clear, became heavy with sediment, their depths now quiet and lifeless. The people who had lived alongside the Yangtze for centuries, fishermen, farmers, poets who sang its praises, found themselves lost in a world where the river no longer behaved as it once had. Yet, the Yangtze is not a river that bows easily. It is a dragon, and even caged, it finds ways to resist. Unpredictable landslides, shifting tides, and climate changes have begun challenging the dam's authority. Conservationists fight to restore lost species, to bring balance where industry has stripped it away. The river, despite everything, still endures, its current slower, perhaps, but never still. And so the Yangtze flows, caught between two worlds, one of ancient legend, the other of modern ambition. It has been conquered, yet never truly tamed. It remembers a time before steel and stone, and it will remember a time after. Because a dragon's veins do not dry, and a river's story never truly ends. Like a dragon, the Yangtze roars through time, powerful, unpredictable, and eternal. These rivers are more than just water. They are stories written in currents, voices carried in waves. They are testaments to time, to change, to the delicate balance between man and nature. And though we have built our cities along their banks, though we have altered their paths, one truth remains unshaken. A river always finds its way. The Mississippi, the soul of America. The Mississippi, 6,275 kilometers, is the backbone of North America. A river that shaped Native American civilizations, the Civil War, and industrial expansion. Known as the River of Dreams, for its connection to American folklore, literature, and music. The Great Flood of 1927, one of the worst natural disasters in U.S. history. The river's role in trade and industry, but also its increasing pollution. Mark Twain's inspiration, his stories capturing the soul of the Mississippi. The fight to save the river from pollution and urbanization. Restoration projects to bring back wildlife and improve water quality. The Mississippi does not flow, it marches. A ribbon of water stretching 6,275 kilometers, it cuts through the heart of North America, shaping the land as surely as it has shaped history. It is a river of movement, of restless energy, carrying stories from one shore to the next. The Native Americans called it Mississippi, the Great River. To pioneers, it was the path to the unknown. To dreamers, it was the promise of something greater. But the Mississippi has never been a river for the faint of heart. It has swallowed cities, stolen lives, rewritten the map of America with each raging flood. The Great Flood of 1927 was its most brutal lesson, a disaster so vast it drowned thousands of square miles, leaving families stranded on rooftops, watching their world disappear beneath the rising waters. The river, once a friend, had become an enemy. In response, engineers built levees, walls of earth and stone, to keep the Mississippi in check. The river was hemmed in, controlled, or so they believed. But a river that has spent millions of years carving continents does not take kindly to confinement. It pushes back. Every bend, every meander, is a silent battle between nature and the hands that try to reshape it. As the levees rose, so did industry. The Mississippi became the backbone of American commerce, carrying barges heavy with cotton, oil, steel, the pulse of a growing nation. Cities flourished along its banks, each one a testament to human ambition. But the cost of progress was steep. Pollution thickened its waters, choking the life from its depths. The fish that had once leapt in abundance grew scarce. The people who had built their lives on the river now turned away from it, seeing only a resource to be used, not a force to be respected. And yet, the Mississippi endures. It does not forget. Its currents still whisper the songs of Mark Twain's riverboats, the hymns of enslaved souls seeking freedom, the laughter of children skipping stones along its banks. It remembers the voices that have risen and fallen like its tides. Now, a new battle begins, not one of floods or levees, but of renewal. Conservationists fight to cleanse its waters, to restore what has been lost. The river, long treated as a tool, is being recognized once more as a lifeline, a storyteller, a force that cannot be silenced. The Mississippi flows on, stubborn, unyielding, a river that refuses to be forgotten. It is more than water. It is history, memory, the soul of America itself. And no matter how many dams or levees try to shape it, one truth remains. The river decides where it will go. The Yenisei, the frozen giant. The longest river that flows into the Arctic Ocean, 5,539 kilometers. A lifeline through the frozen lands of Mongolia and Russia. A river largely untouched, but filled with mysteries, home to some of the coldest, most isolated communities on Earth. The struggle between tradition and modernization, ancient Siberian tribes versus the rise of industrialization. Nuclear contamination, the dark secret of Cold War nuclear testing along its banks. How climate change is melting Siberia's permafrost, altering the river forever. The river remains one of the last great wildernesses of Earth. Scientists race to understand the impact of climate change before it's too late. The Yenisei does not rush. It moves with the slow, deliberate power of a river that has seen the world change around it and remained unmoved. Flowing 5,539 kilometers through the vast, frozen wilderness of Siberia, it is a silent titan, a waterway that has shaped the lives of those who dared to live along its icy banks. For centuries, the Yenisei belonged only to the wild. It carved through ancient forests, through tundras where wolves howled under endless skies. Its waters ran dark and deep, teeming with fish untouched by civilization. The nomadic tribes who followed its course understood its nature, a force neither cruel nor kind, only indifferent. They took what they needed and gave their respect in return. But the modern world does not respect what it cannot control. When the Soviet Union looked upon the Yenisei, it did not see a river, it saw power. Dams rose along its length, harnessing its currents to fuel cities and industries. The Krasnoyarsk Dam, an engineering marvel, bent the river's will to serve the ambitions of man. Where once the Yenisei froze solid in winter, now it ran warm beneath the weight of turbines, forever changed. Yet, power comes at a price. The river's natural rhythm, once dictated by the seasons, became something unnatural. The great migrations of fish, their ancient routes unbroken for millennia, now ended at concrete walls. Villages that had survived on the Yenisei's bounty found their way of life slipping away, lost beneath rising waters or poisoned by industrial waste. The river, once pure, now carried secrets, radiation from hidden facilities, pollution from distant factories, the scars of human interference. Still, the Yenisei endures. Its waters may be harnessed, but its spirit remains untouched. It carves through Siberia as it always has, flowing past silent forests and snow-covered peaks, a relic of an older world. Scientists and conservationists now turn their eyes toward the river, searching for ways to heal what has been broken. There is hope, fragile as ice on its winter surface, that the Yenisei might one day be more than a resource, might be wild again. For now, the river waits. It watches the world change, as it has for thousands of years, knowing one simple truth. A river cannot be truly tamed. It only pretends to be. The Yenisei is a frozen giant, holding the keys to a past we cannot afford to lose. Final reflection. From the scorching deserts of Africa to the frozen frontiers of Siberia, these rivers have shaped history, inspired legends, and sustained life for millions. Yet, they are also fragile, threatened by modern challenges. Will we protect them, or will their stories become a distant memory? A call to action. These rivers have given life to civilizations. Now, it's our turn to protect them.